Are we good to go? Okay. Going to call to order the meeting of the Committee on Infrastructure tonight, Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019, at 7:02. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Tom Lopez.
I'm putting the V in committee.
Alderman Jan Schmidt, that's me. Alderman Ernest Jetty.
Here.
And Alderman Ken Gitch is not here.
Okay. Also in attendance is Alderman Clee and Alderman Brandon Laws. Okay. At this time, what we're going to do is open a public hearing on the petition for street acceptance, a portion of Bancroft Street, Legacy Drive, Serenity Lane, and Pilgrim Circle. What we're going to do for the new people here, I'm going to call you up and going to ask for testimony in favor. And you can come up and give your favorable opinion. At the conclusion of that, I will ask for testimony in opposition. Then I will call, at the conclusion of that, then I will call again testimony in favor. You may come up again, but I really don't want anybody really trying to repeat themselves. If you had another point that you wanted to get across that's separate, then you may do so at that time. And then at the conclusion of that, we'll open it up again to testimony in opposition. Okay, and those are the rules of what we're going to do here. So therefore, I will open up for testimony in favor. Does anybody wish to come up and speak in favor of the proposed petition? Okay, first hand up, please. When you come up, sir, and to everybody else, please give your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Mark Jennings. I'm the city surveyor. I'm the one that basically put this all together for you people. And I just wanted to say I'm in favor because of all the work that I've had to do to get it to this point. And if you have any questions, I'm here for the board. Okay.
Well, thank you for being here and your good work. Yes, sir, please come forward.
Bruce Stenner, 5 Legacy Drive. I'm also president of the Mona's Farms Homeowners Association. And I'd like to speak in favor. When this process started last year and has moved forward, we had some concerns that we forwarded to Edgestone Properties, and they were more than forthright and professional in moving forward on those concerns and resolved all of them. So, again, speaking in favor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Still seeking any testimony in favor? Okay, seeing none, we're going to open it up now to testimony in opposition. Anybody in opposition of the petition for a portion of Bancroft Street, Legacy Drive, Serenity Lane, and Pilgrim Circle? Yes, sir.
How you doing, sir? I'm Rhett Petrie at 18 Legacy Drive. It's not so much an opposition against the acceptance of the street. I've got an issue which I had pointed out to the town civil side of things earlier in the year about drainage issues in my backyard. I've got some a single cistern in my area that collects the drainage for a series of 1, 2, 3, about 6 different houses, and it becomes overtaken from the spring melt-off. So it requires maintenance by myself on a nightly basis, as a morning basis, as the spring thaw starts rising again, and the nights freeze above that, on top of that cistern drain, manhole cover, if you will. I'm getting pools of water that, if I don't maintain this thing, I run the risk of flooding out a shed that I have, as well as potentially, if the spring thaw is bad enough, and there's it's compounded with maybe a rain shower, I think it could potentially flood my basement. So I travel a good bit, half the year, and I've had my wife, a pregnant wife, in the backyard digging it out in past. So I've got a couple pictures. I don't know if y'all want to see these things, but I could run through and show you. Do you want to see that, sir?
You may come forward and are the copies for everybody, or is it
No,
just general? Okay, we can accept them as part of your testimony.
Thanks, sir.
Mm-hmm.
The first picture shows the
Sir, you have to stay right at the mic.
Oh, thank you. The first picture shows the common space as well as a little bit of the conservation land, as well as everyone's backyards. And you'll see the extensive amount of land that's draining into this one single cistern, and it's easily overtaken. So I'm not a civil engineer. I know plenty of civil engineers, and I've gotten a couple of ideas. The most simplistic idea is probably just regrade the back in order to overcome the drainage issue. Installation of an enlarged cistern or a secondary cistern is an option, but that's up to whoever's going to voice in on this issue. But it's not my issue is not causing any harm to the acceptance of the street. Beautiful neighborhood, wonderful neighbors. Edgestone's wonderful. Just maybe an oversight on how the drainage issue was going to be an issue. How the drainage issue was going to be come to terms, if you will. So that's why I stand. Just voice my opinions, Mr. Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If I may ask you a question,
Sure thing.
any of this water coming from the street?
I don't believe so. Our granite curbing is high enough that it's all diverted into the drainage basins, drain basins. Everything that's pooling in the back is spring thaw.
Okay. Because the reason I asked the question, if it was an issue with the street, that's something that we would be more, I think you can agree, as we accept the street,
Yes.
would be the issue. But if it's on the property, maybe they laid it out wrong, but, I don't know if that's necessary. I'll have to research to see if that is a city-related issue. Have you sought opinions from anybody, Sarah Marchand, or anybody else with the, in remedy of any of this?
Mr. Jennings doesn't recall. We just had a conversation before we started in here. He doesn't recall an email I sent to him, but back when city engineer Dukran was on the seat as a lead civil engineer, he was aware of the situation as well, and Mr. Jennings received my email as well. I can go back through and forward that to you, sir. But this meeting was overlaid. The way I saw it is any issues within the neighborhood, speak it aloud. So that's what I'm doing here today.
So therefore, again, in follow-up, it seems to be more the layout of the backyard and not related to the particular street itself, to
I'd
which,
have to agree with you, yes.
okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Pause a second so everybody can take a peek at that. Okay. Okay. I will now open up again, conclude testimony in opposition, and open up testimony in favor. Is there additional testimony in favor? Seeing none, I'll conclude testimony in favor and open up testimony in opposition. Seeing none, we'll close the part for the testimony. Do I have a motion?
Move to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. We'll call the meeting at 7:11. And if we can stay seated, and we're ready to go, we'll go right in to the regular meeting of the Committee of Infrastructure, Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019, at 7:11 p.m. in the automatic chamber. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Tom Lopez. Alderman Jan Schmidt, that's myself. Alderman Ernie Jettie. Here. And Alderman Ken Gidge is not in attendance.
Okay. Also present is Alderman Clee and Alderman at Large Laws. We will open up at this time public comment? Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Communications.
From J. Bradford Westgate Esquire, acceptance of Legacy Drive and Serenity Lane, referred to committee on 9/25.
There being no objection, I will accept the communications and place it on file. Further communications.
Also, from Jeffrey A. Zale Esquire, acceptance of Pilgrim Circle, reference to the committee 9/25.
There being no objection, I will accept the communications and place it on file. Petitions.
Petition for street acceptance, Bancroft Street, Legacy Drive, Serenity Lane, and Pilgrim Circle. Mr. Chair, I recommend final passage for this petition. Acceptance of Bancroft, Legacy, Serenity, and Pilgrim Circle.
Okay. We have a motion of final passage. Any questions by any members of the board? Alderman Jettie.
So the ordinance requires a written opinion by an attorney licensed in New Hampshire regarding the ability of the petitioner to grant the city title to the land covered by the street, and that's been provided to us by the Attorney Westgate in a couple of cases, and Attorney Zoll in another case. But the ordinance also requires that the Corporation Council provide review and provide comment. And I spoke to Attorney Bolton about that this afternoon, and he said that Attorney Leonard, I think, was going to review it and provide some written documentation to us. Have you received anything?
No, I have not, but when it comes on, I would hope that everybody within the city has done their homework. These are professionals, and I think anything, this has been dangling out there for several meetings. What I waited for, because where it's basically a neighborhood, several different streets, we waited till they all piecemeal came in so we could do it in one complete swoop. So I think, I don't know, I haven't seen the complete paperwork from Attorney Leonard, but I would assume that that attorney has done due diligence on the matter.
Okay, well, the ordinance requires that we be provided something in writing. I think your assumption is probably correct, but you know, I brought that to Attorney Bolton's attention. He said that he would he agreed with me and said it would be provided, but I'm surprised that we don't have it.
Would the city engineer would like to step forward to give further? You may sit in the chair if you wish.
Okay.
And can you
I'm actually
reintroduce?
the,
Excuse me. Can you reintroduce yourself?
My
please,
name's
again?
Mark Jennings. I'm the city surveyor, taking the place of Mr. Dukran, who's usually present at these meetings. I did meet with Celia on several occasions and brought these petitions from the lawyers directly to her. And then I checked back with her, and she told me that she had checked through the documentation and that everything was in order. So as far as the piece of paper to get back to you, I'm not sure about. But I did know that Celia was okay with what the lawyers had presented, as far as I can testify to that. So that's about all I can tell you about it.
Okay. No, I thank you for that. Knowing great legal department, I'm sure due diligence has been done on this particular matter, particularly where this didn't come up this week.
Correct. That's
How long have you, and to verify, just for the public and for members of this committee, how long have you been working on this particular project of street acceptance on
Legacy and Serenity, it's probably been going on for over 2 years. Anyway,
this? So
it's been a long process.
I know it would be assumptive without actually having the document in hand, but in 2 years, I'm sure the legal work has been done on this.
Right, and some of the petitions were halted because of that particular step wasn't followed through correctly, and then we made sure that the lawyer got the correct paperwork to the legal department, and then she was okay with all the documentation that was presented to her.
Okay. Alderman Lopez.
This is a committee, and we would just be recommending final passage, so couldn't we wait until we could give the legal department until the next Board of Aldermen meeting to actually produce it before voting on a final action?
That is correct. If there's a matter of pending, and I'm pretty confident that it was done, but when it comes to the Board of Aldermen, I'm sure we can have that document in hand.
I'm willing to vote against it if they don't have it, so let's just agree to that.
Exactly,
and then-
which could be done at the Alderman, it has to go through the next tier. Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to cause problems where it's not appropriate, but, so I've got a solution to this, but, so just so everybody understands, the ordinance, section 21, lays out what the petitioner has to do. And from my review of everything, it has to, be reviewed by the city engineer, it has to be reviewed by the planning board. And it looks like all of that's been done. A lawyer has to issue an opinion. It looks like that was done. And then it says the city corporation council shall review said opinion and submit written comments to the appropriate aldermanic committee. Now, section 22 says when the requirements of section 21 have been met, the city engineer shall submit the petition to the Board of Aldermen. So, without that written opinion from the corporation council, I don't think that all of the parts of 21 have been met. But I think the solution for us, I think you're right. I think it's probably been reviewed and it's just a glitch. But what we could do is move for final passage, recommend final passage on the condition that the corporation council issue the necessary opinion before the next Board of Aldermen meeting. And then when the Board of Aldermen meet, if that's been done, we can vote on it.
Alderman Lopez.
I would support that amendment, because given that this is such a long time frame, it's entirely possible they did provide an opinion, and none of us are going to sit here and go through 2 years' worth of minutes. So if that's an amendment you want to make, I would support that too.
So you would, there's a further amendment of final passage pending the paperwork from the legal department on this particular matter,
Yes.
would be our recommendation to the full board. Okay, we can support that. Okay. Question, Mr. Jenkins.
Jennings, sir.
Mr.
Jennings.
Jettie. On the
Not
gentleman that came up with his complaint, that has nothing to do with the street. So if we accept the street, it's, what we're doing here tonight, we're accepting these roads as part of the municipal thoroughfare. So this is another separate issue, not really has to do with our streets.
Correct.
So we're full confident, with some degree of confidence, we're not having a bad street or something like that with a,
That's correct, sir.
okay, thank you. Alderman Lopez.
So just to confirm, we're not inheriting like a flooding nightmare? You're confident?
I'm sure that we're not inheriting that, correct.
Okay. All right. Any other further discussion? Okay, we have the motion before us, of final passage pending the documentation from the legal department to recommend granting the petitions for a street acceptance for Bancroft Street, Legacy Drive, Serenity Lane, and Pilgrim Circle. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Unfinished business.
We have none.
Chairman,
Yes.
point of order, did we,
We
so
voted on
we
the
voted to amend, do we have to vote on the amended version?
Well,
Recommend final
I
passage.
did, I did read, yeah, I did read in your amended.
So we're all set?
Yeah, I did read it in as recommendation, and clerk, please correct me to make sure. I did say final passage pending
Yep.
the letter from the legal department. So that should come in before the, this goes before the board. Is that satisfactory?
Me, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good. Unfinished business, there is none.
There is none.
New business resolutions.
We have R 19-178, authorizing the sale of city land located at 141-143 Burke Street, map 11, lot 158, to Loyal Holdings LLC for $3,900,000. Mr. Chair, I recommend final passage.
Okay, any discussion on a motion? Alderman Lopez.
This is what we had that whole presentation on, right?
Right.
I just want to say that so the public doesn't think like, yeah, we're just approving it.
This, yeah, this was that place on Burke Street that was looked at for possibly a relocation of the Public Works Department. And it turned out that the structure that is currently there was not adequate, didn't have proper drainings, there was questions, these are just some of the examples, questions of the roof and the snow load on the roof and everything else. So it turned out to be too aggressive than what we really would have liked. But at the same time, when we purchased it, not only was the relocation of the Public Works garage the issue, it was also have that office building there for many other different businesses. There was even talk to combined school department and other different things into it, just to refer back to the history. But the other thing was dividing up a parcel of land for the potential growth for the sewage treatment plant. And the reason we looked at that at the time is in the future, we do not know what the EPA will come down, you know, as far as the, you know, to make sure we put in a quality grade, you know, water product back into the Merrimack River. So now, fortunately, with this purchase, we do have the land that we can add on to the Sawmill Road facility. But we don't need 141 and 143 Burke Street. So we're very fortunate to have Loyal Holdings, which is interested in this, and which will mean $3,900,000 will come back through the purchase into the tax fold, or into the city coffers, so to speak. I would probably more define it like that. So I think this is good. You know, it wasn't a total folly. We got the expansion of the sewage treatment plant. That's going to be huge. And we were able to liquidate the property at the current value, so I think it's a win-win. And I think this Loyal Holdings is a company that's going to provide some jobs and have some people come into the town to do their type of training and stuff like that. So it really, truly is a win-win. So that's the history of it. Yes, Alderman Lopez.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, probably 5 years, 6 years ago, it was decided to buy this property because it was extremely cheap, and we foresaw the need to expand the sewage treatment. After doing that, we decided, well, let's see if we can use the buildings that were on it, but they turned out to be unfeasible. We were stuck with the buildings and we didn't really want to put way more money than it was worth to renovate them into making them useful. So now we have a scenario where we get what we originally wanted, we bring money back in, we sell off the parts that we can't use, likely to a construction training company that will literally just use it for training purposes. So there is no downside.
Yeah.
Okay.
I concur. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any further discussion on the pending motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Refer to the clerk.
Next, we have Resolution 19-181, renaming Park Social at Labine as Park Social. Mr. Chair, I recommend final passage.
Okay, Alderman Lopez.
So I sponsored this bill basically because there's confusion in what the park is named. Part of it's called Park Social, part of it's called Labine. There's signs everywhere saying different things. And what we really wanted to do was include some sort of reference or homage to Club Social, which was on that spot and was of historical significance to a lot of people in the neighborhood. So the social part of it was essential. Maybe naming it Club Social was a little bit weird for naming a park a club, but so they settled on Park Social, and by dropping the Labine Park, we make it way less confusing because there is actually a different Labine Park. So if you call it Labine Park to shorten it, you could send somebody over to Fairgrounds. So that was our thinking, is to just simplify it for the neighborhood and make it something a little more unique and special to the neighborhood.
Okay. Further comment? I just want to say I had that particular fire. I was very disappointed to see that building go. It was very unique in its architecture. In New York City, they have several, but this was what they call a flat iron or triangular type of building, and it's very unique in its design. And unfortunately, when they built a building like that, there was a lot of vacant areas and little cubby holes and stuff like that. It was a heck of a fire. I would have liked to seen a name it after Deputy Chief that burnt it down, but that was a different thing. But I have to compliment my brothers and sisters of the Nashua Fire Department tried to save that. I do know it was also known as the Labine Building. And I think that's why that particular headstone, that was a header on the building that identified the original owner. But I could support this as Park Social. A lot of people in Nashua were familiar with that particular club. Some of the other good clubs that have gone by in the past, such as the Date Myself, but the Loom Fixers Club and other different things that we will see no more. But I think I could support this. So. Yes, Alderman Lopez.
So just to clarify, we commemorated a triangular shaped building with a big circle? Just checking.
We could.
No, the park is actually a big circle. Like, it could be flooded to have ice skating or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I just find that interesting, but
Well,
thank you for your support.
Although I hate to see a fire, I'd like to see, though, in seriousness with that land, we were very fortunate to turn it into a park in that particular neighborhood. That's always a good thing. So out of the tragedy of losing that historic building, I think we did well in having a park for the little kiddos and the families in that particular congested area to enjoy. So I think that's good.
And I would say that park is definitely enjoyed by people in the neighborhood. There's a
Good.
little free library in it. There's some sculptures from the Sculpture Symposium. There's that little circle thing that, like, all kinds of, like, dancing and stuff goes on in there. So it is definitely enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. For other comments, Alderman Jettie.
So the Labine name, is associated with the family that owned that building, and of course, Club Social was a tenant in that building, and the Labine, it was a French-Canadian family. The social club was primarily, the members were primarily French-Canadian workers in town. It's a shame that, I feel a little sad that the Labine name is being tossed out here. I understand your reasons for it.
Here's another one.
Yeah, and I'm wondering why the other one gets to keep the name and this one doesn't. But if the neighborhood is fine with it, and the Labine commemorative stone is going to remain, I assume. And
Yeah, there's no reason to take that.
Right. Right, is that correct, Alderman Lopez? That
No,
there
there's
would
no
be-
plans to change that part of it.
Right.
This is literally just for mapping purposes, so we can find it and not send people to the wrong park.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how Mr. Levine would feel when he designed the building. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, the building or the club social, but when you have a park, I'm kind of more prone to nice social park. You know, it has nothing to identify with the club atmosphere that was there, but
Right, and I can only do what's
can
in
see
my
the
ward.
social
Like,
of a
we have a
park.
proliferation of David Dean parks now, but I mean, that's not my area, so.
But Alderman Jettie, your point's well taken, and I think for the Levine clan, still that marker will still remain at the park, you know, and that's why it was probably incorporated into such, so that you can remember the building that was there, you know, so. Further comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion passes. New business ordinances.
Ordinance 19-054, removing the 30-minute parking time limit on a portion of the west side of Walnut Street. Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend final passage.
Any discussion? Alderman Lopez.
This is just because the 30-minute parking was put there because that was the former site of Yellow Cab. So they were leaving their cars there all day when they unfortunately couldn't get, business. But now it's a barber shop and they need a little more than 30 minutes to finish the haircut. So try not to rush anybody on their hairdo.
Okay. This may, any other further questions, members of the? So there's a need of businesses to increase in that particular area. It's a segue into the next one we're going to be looking at, and that is, I know we're going to be doing a parking study, and I really hate to change something and then have, if the parking study comes out next year, within a year, to change it again, so. But you're saying that the real need for this is businesses are being, 30 minutes is affecting their business?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Jettie?
I see that Director Cummings is here, and parking is under his jurisdiction. Does he have any comment about this?
The chair recognizes Mr. Cummings. If you want to come forward, yeah, you are here to make it worth your while. Thank you, Mr. Cummings.
So for the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development, and for better or for worse, parking falls under my purview. So relative to 019-054, I am sympathetic to, a small business needing the additional time. My understanding is if this wasn't signed, the way it is now, it would fall under the whatever zone that is, which I would have to double check, but I think that might be zone 3. And so that would allow for more time than what is currently contemplated. I will say though, I hesitate to recommend anything relative to parking at this time until after a plan, a professional plan is provided, whether it's this or anything else, because I would rather have third-party professional consultants who are expert in the subject matter come in and help us make the best decisions possible. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I know my comments might be a little all over the place. So for 019-054, I can understand why it's going to be done. It's not going to have any great harm. Relative to 019-057, I think that's a little bit more dramatic, and I wouldn't necessarily think you'd want to do anything at this time until the plan is in place, but that's my overarching comment, is I think parking in general, any changes, any tweaks shouldn't be done until after we get the consultant's plan.
Mr. Chairman?
Questions on Mr. Cummings? Alderman Jettie?
So if this ordinance is passed, it'll remove the 30-minute parking time limit. And what will that leave? Will parking be restricted in any way after this?
I would have to double check that, Ms. Chair, if I may. I would have to double check because I don't know if that site's currently metered. So that's what I would want to know. I don't know if there's meters there or not.
Lopez may-
That part of the street is not, around the
Right.
corner is metered.
Right, so that's what my assumption was. I just don't want to say it without checking, is so you're gonna be creating a site where people could freely park with no time constraints at that point because there's no way to meter it. In theory, it would be under zone 3. But it's not metered right now.
Alderman Lopez.
It's a 30-foot site. So you could maybe put 2 cars there.
Again, I'm agnostic to the amount of cars there. I'm just saying you'd be creating a situation where 2 cars could be in a place for 8 hours with no way to create turnover or anything like that.
Could I follow up?
Oh, Alderman Jettie.
So if I could, through you, ask Alderman Lopez, so the problem I see is that by removing the 30-minute time constraint, you could end up with cars, somebody parking. I know that in that area, like on the Walnut Street Oval, there are people that park there all day long, employees in the downtown area. And, if that happened, then, then the barber shop wouldn't benefit by it. Really the answer would be to maybe to, make it put it under the 90-minute or the, well, I don't know how, I'm probably a bad example because my haircuts take like 10 minutes.
I'm not much faster.
So, so I don't know that 30 minutes is, but I don't want to, it's your ward, it's your people, and I don't want to second guess you. But
I understand your point. It's because there's other parking everywhere around that area. This is just parking that's immediately proximate to that one location. And the 30-minute is not helping them now. Giving a little bit of extra time, while it's possible that somebody might park there longer, it's also a known fact that people aren't able to park there long enough. So
Mr. Cummings.
Which is why I'll go back to my overarching comment, which is I really, until we have a plan in place by an independent consultant that is expert in the subject matter, because whether you put it into a different zone or the exact type of questions, I would really like to have the parking consultant tell us so we can do it once right correctly.
Right. And I am,
Thank you.
thank you, Alderman Schmidt.
What was the intention to replace this with? You were going to take off the 30 minutes. Did you want to put on another limit to keep people from parking there for full 8 hours?
not until a need was demonstrated.
Because you wouldn't want people to park in that spot if they weren't going in and out of the barber shop.
It's not going to make a difference to them if they can't, their customers can't stay there long enough to use it anyway.
Well, that's a follow-up, and I think to get to what I think Alderman Schmidt, and correct me, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Alderman, but to Director Cummings, if we change the 30 minutes to, 90 minutes or, whatever, 1 hour, could that temporarily suffice in this type of, or would that need another ordinance to do something like that?
I could amend it, but then we need to make a sign, and I thought the next
Pardon, could
big
you?
argument was going to be, don't make signs.
Right,
If I may.
Yes.
I don't understand the last part of what was just said, but yes, essentially you could amend the ordinance to do exactly as you just outlined. And it would regulate it in some way, because if this doesn't occur, if this regulation goes away, then what will happen is it will just become a free unregulated space in what is an otherwise regulated area. That business or other patrons of the downtown would be able to use it at their leisure.
Right, and if I may, I think Alderman Jettie brought up that very good point. It's one of these biting your nose off to spite your face, that if it's unregulated and somebody parks there, what benefit it is for this particular business. So you want something that's gonna have the flush of where people can park there within the quiet amount of time, and then the spot opens up again. I'm in favor of ruling in favor of the business, but as written right now, to make it, I think, as the ordinance is currently before us, will hurt the business more than I think, from what it's intending to do. Further comment? Alderman Jettie.
Through you, if I could ask Director Cummings, when is this parking study going to be done? When will it be finished?
That's a fair question.
So if I may, I believe proposals are due tomorrow from the RFP that was issued. We come before you ideally in November to get a contract approved. We start the process. It'll probably be a 3-ish, maybe a little bit longer type of process. So you're looking at March-ish, March, April type timeframe when you'll have a report back.
Alderman Lopez.
I would be willing to table this until November, so we at least know that there is a bidder and we have a contract in place, and maybe we have a firm timeline for when they'd be done.
The chair will accept a motion to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. To the clerk.
This is a tougher one. Ordinance 19-057, increasing the parking time limit at meter zone 1. I would recommend final passage, Mr. Chair.
Comments? Alderman Lopez.
It seems like it's going to be the same difference. I read the Downtown Improvement Committee opinion on it, and their opinion was that we would be basically spending money to put up signs where the A study, whenever it was done, could just say a different time, amount, frame, or whatever, and it would be kind of a wasted effort. So while I recognize that logic, I'd also like to know the stakes, because my concern is if we just table this until March, April, whatever, I know I've been pushing for a parking study since at least 2017. And I've brought it up in this committee many, many, many times as something we need to be looking at. So I don't want to wait indefinitely, especially if over the holiday season things look good, but then in January and February, that's when businesses really need customers to be settled in and present. And so I don't want to have to tell my constituents that we just postponed it on a study where we don't know it's going to end. So I'd rather just table it until November, because by then we'll have the bidder, we'll have an idea of how long the study is actually going to take, and we'll have a flat understanding of what we're talking about holding it off for.
The chair would like to explain the tabling. I should have done this before, but the tabling motion. If it extends past December 31st, then the bill dies, the ordinance dies, which can be rewritten by the new board that comes in. And so it would have to be resubmitted, okay? And whenever anything gets tabled, it's going to take a vote of the majority of the board to take it off the table. So if it's tabled, it can't be discussed in the future when we probably have the RFP already done and everything else like that. So I just want to make you aware of the procedural thing, that anything is tabled. If it's not enacted within this calendar year, then the bills would have to be reintroduced by the new board. Alderman Lopez.
That makes sense, and then if we table it, I mean, I plan to bring it up when we actually have more information, so we would be able to discuss it when I make the motion to remove it from the table, so
Well,
either way
I
doesn't make a
think,
difference.
I think you would be prudent, and where it's your bill, I think it'd be prudent to wait to see when we get this report and everything and what's coming down. I think that's the smart way to do it. So Alderman, do you have a motion to table?
Yep, I move to table until November.
Thank you. There's a motion to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? 019-057 is tabled. To the clerk.
Oh, we have ordinance 19-058, authorizing stop signs on Dismore Street and its intersection with Douglas Street. Mr. Chair, I recommend final passage.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion here? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, do we know what this is all about and what the reasons are for it? I see Alderman Dowd is the sponsor, but he's,
Unfortunately,
Bill, I
Alderman
think-
Dowd, as we all know, has missed the last several meetings due to a particular health issue that he is dealing with, so he is not here. I haven't really seen it, anything with it, but it's been on the docket, and I haven't seen the community or the neighborhood or anything else like that coming up with pros or cons on this particular issue. So,
Perhaps we should table this then.
is there a motion to table? That you're
I'll
making the
do so.
motion?
Yes, I will
You
do
are
so.
motion to table.
It'll be me.
All right.
Table?
All right, we're gonna table 019-058. All those in favor signify by saying yay.
Yay.
Okay, motion carries. There you go. We also have a couple bills at this time tabled in committee. R19-150, which is authorizing the city of Nashua to enter into a license agreement for a parking area off Artillery Lane, Nashua abutting map 63, lot 45. I know we have Alderman Clee here that has been the main sponsor of this and working with it. It seems that Mr. Cummings had to quickly step out of the room for a, important message, I'm sure. But at the level we're at right now with this, communications has gone out to the particular attorneys representing 24 Merrimack Street, if I got it correctly. This is, they have the street address is on Merrimack Street. Their inclusion that we're concerned with is the rear of the building onto public park land of Artillery Lane. This has been a work in progress. It was tabled on June 27th, and in my discussion with Mr. Cummings, if he wants to speak more on it, it's still in negotiations. We haven't heard a lot back from the particulars, and so at this particular time, if the board sees fit, we'll leave it on the table. Do you want Mr. Cummings for a future, further enlightenment, or?
Can you, I apologize, can you just reorientate me to which ordinance?
Basically, we're talking about the Artillery Lane 24 Merrimack Street property. You haven't heard, it's still in negotiations, and
Correct.
it's still pending right now.
So even as late as, I believe of Monday of this week, I called the attorney who's representing the applicant on this to have a conversation. I have not heard back from him yet on it.
Alderman Clee?
Yeah, in truth, with the lack of necessarily them coming forward and not being here and anything like that, I know I'm not a member of this committee, but I would recommend, if you wouldn't mind, keeping it tabled until they come to the meeting or they've come to an agreement with Director Cummings and Director Marchant and whoever it is that they're
Good.
negotiating with. I think that's
Right.
the best plan.
Thank you, Alderman Clay. The reasons I just brought up was just to keep the history afoot of why it's still on the table. It's still a work in progress.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Alderman. Alderman Lopez?
At the request of Alderman Clee and Director Cummings, I am willing to do nothing.
Outstanding.
Well done.
We
appreciate
He's the
that.
best. He's
We
the best.
appreciate that.
Here for this.
Golf clap.
Thank you, Alderman Lopez. Okay. All right then. We'll discuss 019-036, to which Alderman Lopez has, is a main sponsor, but designating an additional section of Bauer Street one-way easterly. I know I've worked with Mr. Cummings, and we have worked with NRPC, several stakeholders from the community on this particular matter, and it's still basically a work in progress, and it's not really, when you change one-way streets and everything, you gotta look at the bigger global picture and everything else, so it's, one of the stakeholders hasn't really weighed in on the balance of this particular thing, so it's best to move slowly, keep it on the table until the negotiations are done as well. Alderman Clee?
May I ask a question about this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I also am a sponsor on this, and I'll be very honest and truthful. One of the reasons why I did it was my doctor's office is down that way, and I spoke to a number of people within that office of the near misses and the accidents, the confusion within that area. The stakeholder that you're waiting to hear from and so on, do we know if they're opposed to it, in favor of it? I guess my concern is that I think this is a dangerous area, and I agree with you. Every change we make creates its own unintended consequences, which could create even more chaos. But I'd just be curious as to, I know this has been going on for a long time, and I just recently heard again about something very close, and I'm worried about it.
I'm going to be guarded, quite honestly, in the
Okay.
answer, that I think it's still negotiations that are going on.
Okay.
And the pending plans, I'm not saying there aren't any,
Right.
but some of the stakeholders haven't completely weighed in on their particular opinions. I think they're digesting them. And so it takes that to take a look. And Mr. Cummings, would that be a fair summation?
I think that's a very fair summation, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Alderman Lopez?
In defense of the other parties, we only recently looked at the Regional Planning Committee's study and data, so they just got it and they have to figure out what they're gonna do.
Right. Point well taken. Thank you, Alderman Lopez. Anybody else weigh in on that? All right, so we'll keep 01936 on the table because it's a work in progress. Very good. General discussion. Quiet group. Very good.
If I may,
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Cummings.
I just wanted to make this group make it known to this group that I just got off the phone with Attorney Leonard. She sent in a memo on the petitions, the street acceptance petitions at 4:10 this afternoon to Donna Graham. But she forwarded me the memo as well, and I have forwarded the memo on to you all now, so it's in your it's in your inbox. So you have the actual, and I didn't want to represent anything until I confirmed with her, but standard practice here in the city is for that petition to have moved forward in the process, it would had to have been signed off on by legal. Legal has signed off on it and blessed it. It is in good standing, and so this body should have no concerns with ratifying the acceptance of those street petitions.
And if I may, I would like to again welcome Ms. Donna Graham on board, being our legislative assistant, but we must keep in mind that she is relatively new. She came from another municipality, but all municipalities do something a wee bit different and stuff like that. So she is catching up to speed, so I think we can cut a little latitude of 4:30 arrival of a document to a 7 o'clock meeting, so I think I can understand. Thank you, Mr. Cummings, for that. But I think the pending motion is still good, because
We'll have it by Alderman meeting.
that will come up, and it has been provided. Unless it's the willing of the committee to go back to readdress this. Alderman Jettie, since you had did you get the email? Are you want to wait to the automatic meeting, or do you want to go to just final passage?
You want to take time to read it now, or?
Well,
I think the way we've got it is fine.
Okay, and if that's the whim of the board, we can, yeah, and I concur. I do concur with you. I agree. We didn't hold anything harm, so we can leave it like that. But, Mr. Cummings, thank you for that. Very, very much appreciative. Okay, public comment.
Question.
Oh,
Right out of
please,
topic.
Alderman.
So, one of the issues that was coming up in Ward 4 that kind of got lost in the other much more prevalent issues in the area was people crossing, particularly middle school kids crossing Main Street, right where the Burger King hits Belmont Street and then and then leads up to the Elm Street Junior High. Unfortunately, the front door of Junior High of Elm Street perfectly frames Burger King when kids walk out. So they're all like, let's just go down to Burger King. It's even like a downhill slope. So I don't know what the solution is because we can't, I have tried reaching out to the school district to see if we should put a crossing guard and they were like, well, you wouldn't want them to cross. And I have no idea what to do. We can't block the street off. We can't add another intersection because it's within 30 feet of other intersections. It's really close. So I just wanted to see if the committee had any ideas. Close Belmont Street, turn it into a parking
Alderman
lot.
Jettie.
Well, if you can be patient, I think the school might be moving.
But those are famous last words is my only problem. Like, the school will be moving in 3 years and then something will happen next year. So I can be that patient, but is there some kind of interim thing? I mean, maybe this is a question through the chair to Director Cummings. Can we get highway barriers and just put them on the sidewalk so the kids have to walk 60 feet in either direction and can't just go that way?
I'll look into that and circle back. I don't know. That's the first time I've heard of that.
Well,
Something we can look into.
also too, and I'm going by my recollection of the particular intersection, and we're talking about people that got some pretty young legs. But the city does have a traffic light there, am I correct? And Belmont Street.
Not at that spot. They just jaywalk right across.
Okay, but they can walk down another,
They can, but they won't.
well,
So if we block them.
It's either that or sprinklers that are timed right when school gets out.
right. Maybe, would you like to be a guest writer for the Elm Street Junior High?
I have worked
Mr.
with kids. They
Safety
don't even
Report?
listen to me. It's pointless.
I'm sure Burger King probably could do something, but I don't know. But it is a good point.
Maybe
Used
if
to
they
be-
broke their soda machine once or twice, then kids won't go there.
But, I don't know, just in general discussion, we have a traffic light here, and to put another one there, and then, how many,
Yeah, that's the awkward part of city planning. It
Right.
turns into West Hollis where there's a stoplight every block.
and then the impediment, I'm sure Mr. Cummings got to look into it, but Jersey barriers or something like that, an impediment of plowing. We do plow that section of sidewalk because of the school, so, that's a whopper of a sandwich to chew.
Oh.
It's an incredible Whopper.
He went there. Ugh.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you should be.
Do you want fries with that?
No, I'm willing to adjourn.
Oh.
I told you, infrastructure's fun. Here we go. It is fun.
Very
Thank you, Alderman Lopez, for bringing that up. Mr.
It's an
Cummings,
issue I have
so-
no idea for, so I thought if I brought it up and people started thinking about it, maybe someone will come up with an idea that I can't. Skywalk? I don't know.
Anybody got anything else? Okay, there's no reason for non-public session. Do I have a motion?
Alderman Lopez.
Alderman Lopez.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. The Committee on Infrastructure is adjourned at 8 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.